And now, to hear the stuff they don't want to teach you in school about money and finance, here's the Strategic Wealth Network podcast.
I've been working with Brad and Janet now for a few years. When they first came to me, they had some serious decisions to make. Brad had been approached by a buyer who wanted to buy his radio station. The decision that he had to make was to either take a smaller lump sum up front today or receive payments over time for a much larger amount potentially in the future. After drilling down on their situation, it was obvious to them that the time value of money was much greater than the potential opportunity for more money in the future. At the time, they were living in a home that wasn't ideal for their situation. They were debating selling the house and building their dream home, but they had no direction or guidance. They were spending approximately 30% of their earnings and income on debt service, 30% on taxes, and most of the remaining money was being spent on just living expenses. They had savings in traditional retirement accounts, but those were not performing, and they had lost about 37% in value during the last crash in 2009. So that left them with very little savings and absolutely no chance of retiring. After making a few simple changes to their personal economy and focusing on controlling and managing the wealth that they had generated through the sale of the radio station, they're in a much, much better position today. My goal has always been to provide partnership in the isolation, clarity in the confusion, and knowledge and understanding so that you can gain power over your decisions. That's exactly what Brad and Janet found to be true working our system.
We don't spend a lot. We're not, really super high materialistic people, but we would like to be able to take a vacation when we want and that sort of thing.
Our big thing, if you don't mind, Sean, our big thing is that we're transitioning from, my sort of taking a couple years off to build the house to going back to work. Brad transitioning into retirement after receiving a lump sum, and we're pleased with what we did with that money. Where we live is awesome. I mean, we think there's a lot of value there. It's just not real liquid, and that's okay. So we, I guess our whole thing is we're transitioning from, retirement and everything. So, I mean, we bought a lot of precious metals. So, we're kind of, depends how you look at it. I mean, I'm not saying we're sucking it now, but now's not a good time to sell it. So we're just sitting on that. We have assets. We're okay. I mean, I don't want to keep borrowing from our policies to supplement our living. But we have to, allow for our own reset time, whatever, and it's all good. We didn't really have
our
any.
lowest point. It was right before we sold the station, and we were hanging on for dear life.
All we had was a little bit of equity in our other house.
And Janet was working to, we were taking both of our incomes and taking care of our monthly mortgage payment, food. I mean, we were just living on our income, and really didn't have anything. We had, here and there we'd get, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 that we put into precious metals. So we instead of buying $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 at a time, we were buying more like $4,000 to $6,000 at a time, and kind of putting that together just because we had read enough that was telling us that we needed something to protect ourselves down the road. Which is what we did. We never really intended to. We never did it to, turn it over and make a profit on the, buying and selling of precious metals. And I tell people when we moved from our house in town to our house out here, of course that was just a year and a half ago, but we basically went from a quality of life from a 4 to a 10 overnight. So selling the station was the big change in our lives, and that was in September of 2010.
The payout, there was an initial payout, and then we did a settlement for an early payout on the final amount, which it would still be.
I wasn't supposed to have this all paid out until September of 2015.
Right, I remember it was kind of a long, extended payout.
Which means, the ramifications of that. Primarily, the main thing is that, we wouldn't have been able to move in here because it took us a couple of years to build this place. We wouldn't have been able to move in here till 2017, and we've been living here since 2012. So for those extra 5 years, the amount of drop that we got that I accepted, we feel totally fine about that.
Yeah.
Also, that we took a chunk of that money and did two things. One is that we put it into precious metals, and two, we did our bank on yourself.
Good.
And finished our house.
Yeah.
And we also, through the difficult time between payouts, the initial payout and that final payout, we ended up cashing in what we had in precious metals to put it into the house when things were tight. And had we not had that money invested in precious metals, you know, having it sit somewhere in a bank account, I don't know what we could have possibly lost. I don't know what we could have possibly spent because it wasn't quite so liquid.
Yeah.
So I think that was a good measure while we were figuring things out, that we little by little cashed in precious metals here and there to pay our contractor and buy roofing and stuff.
And that might have been when precious metals were down maybe 10%, not the 30-40% that we're looking at now.
Sure. So, well, that's an interesting conversation in and of itself, because, you know, you've got the liquidity of the metals, which is a good thing. It's a lot more liquid in case you do need it for something. And, you know, the purchasing power of it was pretty consistent. I mean, it was basically used to build the house. So you paid the contractors, and, you know, the amount of building materials and the cost of that construction today would be a lot more than it was back then.
Yeah, we saw like for one thing, rebar increased 3 times during the construction of our house. I don't even know where it is now because I don't track it anymore, but it increased 3 times during construction.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing for people to sense, is that, you know, they're saying, well, if inflation is taking hold, why are metals dropping 40%? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute for people. So what we have to do is we have to look at those other things that we would spend our money on: food, fuel, you know, construction material, other things that we need to live on. And it's a good gauge. You know, it's a good way to kind of gauge inflation, since there's so much manipulation with the metals right now. You know, it's tough to gauge inflation watching gold and silver. If you're doing that, then it's really a deflationary period of time.
I think what it comes down to for us is that we have assets, and we still have, I mean, if we need to borrow more from our life insurance policies, we can. We don't want to. We'd rather start paying those back and actually buy more insurance. But, you know, that's a cool thing, that we purchase the insurance and we've been able to use that money. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. It's neat. So you had this liquidity event, if you want to call it that, the sale of the radio station. And what your focus was how do we protect that money? How do we capture more of that money instead of just letting it flow through our personal economy? And talk a little bit about that decision. So how did you learn about the strategy? What was the first time you saw the strategy? How did you originally hear about it?
Actually, I heard about I've been hearing about it for years, but I thought it meant $1 million in a bank charter. And when we hooked up with you guys, when
EVG.
Yeah, when Mike and Paul and the dry erase board went over insurance, I was like, oh my God, that's it? That's what people have been talking about?
Yeah, well, I'm excited for you to see our twist on that strategy. I just opened up another one. I had a little extra cash flow, didn't know where to put it, and so I opened up another policy and dumped it in there. I immediately borrowed it out, put it in the checking account, so we were safe and secure and liquid, which is nice because the new products that we're using today, they have that immediate liquidity. You can access the money right away, which is different. You know, it used to be wait for a year and then you can borrow against it. Well, now it's as soon as that check clears, you can borrow it right back out and put it in your bank. And now you've got the asset growing at 6 to 8% with the insurance company, plus whatever you're going to do with that cash. And so it's a good little kind of mini hedge, if you will. A lot of times we have people literally just living off of that money, because they're going to spend that money anyway. You got to pay your electric bill. You got to pay the other bills, your overhead, your expenses. And so whose money are you going to use? Are you going to use your money or the life insurance company's money? And so we've just kind of taken that strategy to the next level. And now we talk about trying to capture all of the wealth that comes into your personal economy.
Well, and that's part of the beauty of being involved with a group, because we're still retraining our minds. We feel like we're off to a good start, but we haven't shifted over psychologically just yet.
Okay.
We follow what you just laid out completely, and that's really what our goal is, to run everything through that policy.
Yeah. We've really done a great job, I feel, of drilling down on these concepts. Well, now we're really getting into the nuts and bolts and showing people the numbers. When you put $1 in here, what happens over here? And how do you turn that $1 into $2 over here?
Right.
Physically, how does that happen?
Right.
So it's exciting.
Well, and I think, too, another element which needs to be discussed here is how you put us in touch with Doug.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we before we hooked up with EVG, we got a tax bill that was 5 times what our tax person told us, and all we could do was pay it. So we paid it, and then Doug helped us get, I guess we got like 25% of it back. I mean, that's a lot of money.
It is.
And then we did a loan with Horizon, and we made money there. We borrowed from our policy and made some money there. I wish we could do it again.
Those opportunities are available, and they're becoming more and more available every day. And so having that store of cash, that warehouse of cash, meaning the life insurance policies, is critical, so that you can jump on those opportunities. Because it sounds like things are fairly stable now that the house is built and you're looking to the next thing. It's now a matter, in my mind, it's a matter of efficiency. How do we create more efficiencies with your flow of money, the income you're getting or other assets that you have? A lot of it's just a feeling. You feel like you're more secure. You feel like you have more cash flow. And it's literally just restructuring or repositioning things to optimize it. You had this huge tax bill. Do you remember what the dollar amount was?
It's about 53, I think.
State and Fed, it was like, 54 or something like that.
Okay, great. And it was just, was it from the sale of the radio station? Was it just income? Or?
It was, and I'll tell you kind of what happened. Like Brad had an in-house tax person who worked with a CPA, and she told us that it was going to be about $10,000. So we put aside 12.
Sure.
No, actually, I put aside 20. And filed an extension. And when that came in, I mean, it was like on a Friday afternoon. We had to sign papers and get them in the mail on Monday, and it was 54,000 something, and we were just like,
yeah.
So we paid it, and that's when I thought there's got to be a way out of this. And a friend of mine from Germany actually sent me the link for EVG. I'd been watching it and paying attention, and it was right around Christmas that Brad came home one day, and I said, "We're members of the Elevation Group," and he's like, "What?" but so that's when we started being turned on to new ideas, and so based on EVG, we went with Tom Wheelwright's office.
Sure.
And it was expensive.
Yeah, very.
And they said, we worked with this one guy, I forget his name, we really liked him, but they said had we gone to them prior to the sale, they could have done something. But since they didn't, and they went, we paid, and they went through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and they didn't find anything. And so, we just filed again for that year. And then we got introduced to Doug from you. And Doug went in there and tore things up, and he found exactly, it's not that there was a mistake, but our taxes were supposed to be deferred until final payout. And so Doug quickly found out what the issue was. He found it right away. And then he introduced us to going for the possibility of purchasing tax credits, which sounded great, so we did it. And we got back 25%.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
It is. It is. And it's hard to place a return on investment when you're recapturing that wealth that was transferred to Uncle Sam. You know, it's like, how do you calculate a rate of return for money that you're just keeping in your pocket instead of, having it leave? It's difficult to do because there's an opportunity cost to your money going to Uncle Sam. You're missing out on opportunity you could be, interest you could be earning with other things. So, what did you do with the money when it came?
Well, we were actually on a really nice vacation when the money did come in.
Good.
So, it was cool to come back from vacation and have that check in the mail.
Sure.
I don't know if we did anything specific. I think I'm pretty sure we
paid
put
off insurance loans.
I think we put it into our insurance.
Good. Recapitalized.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
And talking about, I hate to say Doug versus Tom Wheelwright's office, but I have to say that Doug was less expensive.
Very much so.
Much bigger bang for our buck. And Doug we really enjoy working with Doug. We can't wait to meet him one day. We think Doug's a great guy.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all uphill from here.
Yeah.
Downhill.
So if someone's deciding on whether or not they're going to make the commitment and actually become a part of this group, this team, what would you tell them? What are the big ahas that you guys got? What are some of the big kind of light bulbs that popped on when you first started seeing some of this stuff?
Well, I would say for one, just that Doug had, that there are other opportunities out there. You hear from people saying anybody who says that they can get 10% interest on anything is lying.
Sure.
And then it's like, well, sorry, you don't know as much as you think you do, because there are opportunities out there. You just need to kind of get underneath the covers and look a little closer or whatever, because
Sure.
I mean, that was one thing that I felt very excited about. The other thing is I didn't know tax credits could work like that. That's brilliant, and it's legal. And why wouldn't everybody do that?
Yeah. So it's what I'm hearing is it's more about what you don't know what you don't know. It's the big
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
and if I might add, it's kind of another spin on what he just said, is that when we had this, what was to us a huge sum of money come into our lives,
Mm-hmm.
we went to friends of ours who are not only very financially successful, but one is a financial guy. He manages multi-billion-dollar portfolios.
Mm-hmm.
And he said 10% doesn't exist.
Sure.
So my saying that, I think the greatest value for me being associated with the group is that it's a whole different mindset. And, I know that mainstream isn't telling us of all the possibilities available, but it helps for me to have a network to turn to because I just, and another thing too, I'm sorry I'm not speaking so eloquently.
That's okay.
But, before Brad and I, when I was getting things together to hook up with you this morning, we're kind of like feeling a little embarrassed and a little ashamed of, we're not feeling like quite the all-stars. And I said, yeah, but Sean always treats us like it's okay, like he never treats us like we're stupid. We always come out of this
That matters.
talking with you guys feeling like we're really okay.
Good.
I mean, we're actually, I don't know who's holding out the yardstick, but we're far ahead of a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. We're grateful.
Well, that's good to hear. I appreciate those comments a lot. Because that is really the goal.
It is. It's really true. It's not so much that we need our hand held, but for lack of a better way of putting it, we need our hand held. And I think a lot of people do, and it's important to know that you got support there. You've got somebody who knows more about the current landscape economically and financially than we do, and the trust level could not be higher.
Well, I feel like we live in a world where we're bombarded with fear and untruths, and we don't know most of the time. most of the people very close to us can't really get into any of this. So we, if it weren't for you guys, we'd feel really on our own. We'd feel really on our own, or we'd feel really broke.
Yeah, yeah. You were able to capture 17,000, plus you've got this other money that you're able to earn now. How much would you pay for a membership to accomplish what you've accomplished now? What's the value of that membership? How much would you pay?
I think I would pretty easily spend $1,000 a year. Maybe not for a new person. I think that could be really intimidating for a new person.
Sure.
Well, and it does depend on how much activity you have and how much you're generating, obviously, and each case is different.
Right.
So,
It's. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to say 1,000. It's a tough question to answer.
Yeah.
Because you scare people away with a high entry level, but at the same time, the potential of saving, tens of thousands of dollars is right there.
Well, and I think too.
And it's not really saving; it's generating, earning.
Sure. Yeah. The reason I ask is when we did this in 2006 with the National Institute of Financial Education, it was free, and no one would listen to us.
Yeah, you have to charge something because people have to make a commitment.
Yeah, it was a weird experience for me. I was like, are you kidding me? We're trying to save as many, this real estate collapse is happening right now. You need to know this stuff, and we're giving you this free information. And they're like, yeah, we're good. Thanks. So we're trying to give as much free content and information as we can, because we do think it's a huge value, and we do kind of understand that barrier to entry.
Well, I tell you what, it's like while you're talking, I'm paying attention, but I'm also thinking about how it feels so good just to connect with you. It's like there's something so reassuring about just connecting with you when the goal is not even about Janet and Brad's next strategy. It's just it's tapping into that world that we're not reminded exists.
Sure.
And it's not just a world of finances, but it's a world of a different kind of thinking.
It is. We believe that everything is changing right now, and it's at the beginning of this conversation, you said something that's pretty close to my heart. You've been focusing on other things besides consumption, and our focus has been, compassion over consumption. That's our tagline. So we've been really trying to, when we get any extra money, even if it's just a little bit, our first instinct right now is where can we find someone that needs a little compassion, needs a little help, where we can meet them where they're at, with, I don't know, if it's food or if it's, I don't know, filling up their car with gas, rather than just figuring out how we can, buy more presents for the kids and ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's a different thought process, though, and it's something that's very counterintuitive right now in our country. We just think that everything is shifting. Everything in this financial crisis is really just a wake-up call. It's a catalyst for change. It's a change agent, if you will. So it's kind of like God taking, seeing us screwing up and grabbing us by the shoulders and saying, come on, people, you're not doing this right. We need to just reset everything, start fresh, focus on what's important, and stop focusing on all the, the frivolous, stupid things that we always focus on.
Well, and I think more and more people are realizing how we're all in it together. And we were just at this conference in October, which was really, really cool. And everybody there was all about being in it for the whole. It just wasn't about personal gain. It was really cool. And I think that's one thing that's really happening now is that more and more people are starting to realize there's more than just saving yourself.
Yeah. And we're gonna need to pay attention to this stuff so that we're there for other people, when they're starving and they don't have anything.
Being a part of a solution, just like this,
Yeah. We're really trying to build a community of people that want to kind of, burn the island and get away from all that and really change the way we all help each other and do things. So we just use the financial platform because that's the biggest problem that everybody's seeing right now. But it's with the technology, the advances in technology over the next 10 years, we're hoping to push a lot of this stuff out there on the platform and just show people different opportunities of what's going on.
Like I said, it's not like that just we want to be free. We want everybody to be free.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we can make better decisions and choices and help out more people. But thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it.
We hope we gave you
Sure.
something.
I think you did. You gave us tons.